some of the men of Mecca married some of the women of Medina,
Mm.
and they wanted to engage in sexual intercourse, vaginal intercourse from behind, not in the anus, but obviously in the vagina. And the women were like, no, we don't do that. Like they refused. And then the men wanted clarification from the Prophet ﷺ whether it's permissible to engage in vaginal intercourse from behind. So again, these issues where the Quran has responded to some of these issues, where the Prophet ﷺ has responded to some of these issues, even the scholar is of that time. So the same way, like, you know, and I read scholars that will say, oh, oral sex, that's only something that they do in the West or the kuffar. And it's just
Yeah.
like, have you read some of the books where they're talking about in the 14th century and some of the antics that they were getting up to? You know, so again, it's to try and, I didn't want to just paint, oh, you know, Islamic history is just wonderful, there are no
Of course.
issues. So people need to see the diversity in some of the issues that people are facing. So a lot of what even is going on now is not new. The only new phenomenon is maybe like you could say um, the technological aspects in terms of the access to like porn and stuff like that. But in terms of like sexual issues that or people that are struggling with whether married, not married, it's not nothing. It's not nothing new. And I just think that
Mm.
sometimes a lot of Muslims need to kind of get out of this idealistic um, idea. You know that in the past it was great, and then unfortunately, you know, we got you know, it's just again, if you read history, it's very clear. Like again, things happen, and again, you're dealing with human beings. It doesn't make someone less of a Muslim or less of a human being because they may be going through certain things or they have these struggles. So sorry, I think I kind of went off on a tangent, but
No, no,
um,
it was fascinating to listen to that, and I completely agree. I think one of the main issues here is that what you've got now is because of globalization, you've got a mix of cultures, and now especially with Muslims in the West, who've it was our parents or our grandparents that came to this country, wherever you are, whether America or the UK or Australia or wherever, and of course brought back their sensibilities with them, and then their kids grew up in the West, and they picked up Western sensibilities. So for example, a lot of Western Muslims, they for them it is the idea of oral sex and how they engage in intimacy is very clear because of the Western sensibilities. But then when come their wedding night or a few weeks before their wedding, the bride or the groom to be will be told by their parents, oh, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, can't do this and you can't do that. And then suddenly it becomes a shock factor where they're like, oh, does Islam not let me do all of these things? And the culture and the Islamic aspect gets confused. And that's why a lot of Muslims need that education where they need to differentiate, okay, what is actually the Shari'i guideline? What will I be punished for if I do this? And what is permissible and good that I can engage in? And that's really where I feel a lot of Muslims are trying to get that understanding when it comes to this stuff. Because I used to do presenting on a Islamic channel, on Iman channel, and one of the key questions that you would always get in the nighttime show would always be related to like what is permissible in terms of sexual activity. And if you just put this into YouTube or Google search and like actually look at the analytics of how often this kind of stuff is shared, how often this stuff is searched, you'll be surprised. Like, is oral sex halal? Is like probably like one of the
yeah,
top searches on like YouTube. I wouldn't be surprised. I do feel like it's one of those things that education is the key here, and to really access the Islamic tradition. Sure, like lots of scholars had lots of opinions, but when it goes back to showcasing the diversity, I think that's really important, and I think you've done that excellently in your book.